welcome. It's time for that spoiler talk that I promised you guys earlier. I'm telling you right now, we've got a lot. We we've got a lot to talk about. So, long time ago, when I was doing Black Panther speculation videos, I thought that the way in which they were going to handle this. Actually, no, I think I was actually correct. I'm going to have to go back and watch my own video. But we knew that the way in which T'Challa was going to die was going to be kind of similar to how basically Chadwick Boseman passed away in the real world, which Chadwick had cancer and it was aggressive, and the disease that T'Challa succumbed to was also a very aggressive disease as well. And I like the way in which it opens up because it sets the tone for Shuri's character, where as soon as it begins, she's in the lab and she is running around frantic, trying to create something that's going to basically help her save her brother. And I like the fact that the person who delivers the news isn't Ramonda, because she walks in and you can see the devastation on her face, and Shuri sees the devastation, and it's Shuri herself asking her AI to basically tell her what her brother's heart rate is, and the AI is the one who delivers the devastating news. And it fits the tone because she ends up relying and being closer to her AI than she is to basic human interaction, which like I said, informs her journey going forward, especially in regards to the choices that she makes. Angela Bassett as Ramonda is absolutely fucking fantastic. Like I said this in the spoiler-free review, but she is fantastic. The power, the majesty, just everything that a black queen should embody is Angela fucking Bassett, and she is up there and she's eating up every single fucking scene that she is in. And it's a great dynamic, especially the river scene where there's the funeral procession, then after the funeral there's a period of mourning, and then once the mourning period is over, you take your funeral garb and you place it in the flames to let the people who've passed away go. And she's ready to essentially let T'Challa go, to let him pass on, because like T'Challa's always said, death it's just a stepping off point. Like, you end up in the Great Belt where you're allowed to run free. But for Shuri, she's never been spiritual. We see that in the very first Black Panther, where M'Baku basically calls her on that, where, you know, she just says she's a young child who scoffs at tradition because she's extremely scientific. She has to approach everything from the position of science. And we see a difference in both of their opinions, where Ramonda is spiritual. She feels T'Challa on the breeze. She feels him pushing her forward, guiding her forward. Whereas Shuri is just like, that's just your brain and serotonin, baby. That's just your brain and serotonin, mama. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but that ain't T'Challa out there. And then Namor shows up. Now, of course, I'm skipping like the whole Namor thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. But then Namor shows up, and it's a shock for the both of them. But I actually want to focus on Namor's shock, because when Namor shows up, he seems shocked that a place like this actually exists. It's kind of like how I would say Killmonger and a lot of characters felt, like Ross felt in the first Black Panther when they ended up in Wakanda, where they're like, yo, look at this place. This place is amazing. For Namor, he's only ever been in Talokan. So for him to leave somewhere where he thinks is pristine and perfect and show up in someplace else and realize that this place too is also pristine and perfect was a culture shock for him, because there's a moment where he steps out and he's like, yo, like, the air here is just pure. And then he turns around, he's like, and y'all water. He's like, y'all got that A1H2O. That's the water that Bobby Boucher was drinking in The Water Boy. The one that glowed, that he had inside that canteen that his father got from the North Pole. That's the water in Wakanda. He was like, yo, and y'all water. Y'all waters. Woo! Perfect. And I like that while he's doing this, Shuri and Ramonda are just on guard with the spears. Because here's like this super strange dude with wings on his feet and pointed ears, who came out of the water, who made it past all of their defenses in the most protected country on the entire fucking planet, And he is just like a kid in a candy store for the very first time, just taking in the sights. And then it's the immediate switch where it instantly turns to a threat, which is like, how dare you, motherfucker? That's something I really enjoy. Where he's like, yo, y'all air is clean, y'all water's clean. Oh, it's dope here. How dare you, motherfuckers, reveal yourselves to the world? Who gave y'all permission to do that shit? And that's great because it fits in Namor's character, where I really feel as though I'm going to butcher his name, which is one of the reasons why like I always make sure that my phone is nearby, so that if I need to, I can just pull up the cast so that I don't butcher it. Tenoch Huerta, I really feel as though he embodies Namor perfectly, like across the board, 100%. Perfect depiction of Namor, where he's regal, he's charming, he looks fucking amazing, but he is fucking menacing. You feel the pressure when he is on screen and he is in kill mode and he is in attack mode, and you're just like, this man, they may have changed it so that he's no longer from Atlantis, but this man perfectly fucking embodies the character of Namor, where he is his nation first, everything else second. Where if what you're doing only messes up your nation, he doesn't care. But the second even a pinky toe of what you're doing dips inside of his pond, he's going to slash off that toe. And if he realizes slashing off that toe does not stop it, he is going to go for your fucking head and wipe you out wholesale. And I like the threat of the situation because it's just Shuri and Ramonda on the riverbed. There's no special suit, there's no weapons, there's no royal guard, there's no armor. They're at their most vulnerable here. And if Namor wanted to, he could just simply kill them both. And then he leaves. And then you realize the fucker wasn't alone. He brought like a whole unit with him underwater because they were the ones putting the sonic device on the beach. And you're like, yo, Wakanda ain't ready for this fight. This is probably the first time Wakanda's running into a bunch of enemies. They really do not know how to fight. If you've only ever developed weapons of war to fight nations that are on the land and in the air, when you go up against a nation that does something that you're not used to, which is fighting in the ocean, in the water, you realize just how lacking you actually are. And that's basically what happened. Wakanda wasn't prepared. There was no defenses that they had that could have prevented Namor and his people from basically going to Wakanda, and we see that later, fucking it up, and then leaving with basically zero consequences. But that starts everything off to the races. Shuri and Okoye, they have to go and get Riri Williams. They realize that there's an even bigger shadow game being played in the background because Julius Dreyfus, she's back, and we know that she's going to be leading the Thunderbolts, which is like her own super team going down the line. Ross comes back, which I absolutely love Everett Ross. We're going to talk about, well, no, I feel as though we can just wrap up his character thing right now. I like the fact that his character is now in the role that his character is in the comics, where basically at the end of the movie they go and get him. Them getting him basically means that he's going to be their representative, which means he has like immunity. There's no nation on the planet that can arrest him anymore because he's a diplomat for Wakanda that's going to end up working at like the United Nations or something along those lines. But they go and get Riri. They get well, here's the thing. So Namor said, go find Riri Williams, bring me the scientist, and when you're done, blow into this seashell, place it in the ocean, and I will come find you. But that was a lie. Because the entire time that that's going on, his people were basically tracking the Wakandans. Like the entire time. They knew where the Wakandans were going the whole time. Because it's never really explained why Namor's people were basically there at that bridge at that moment. Like, we don't really get into their technology extremely deep. We know that they are an underwater civilization, and it looks fantastic, but it doesn't look to be on the level of, let's say, Aquaman's Atlantis. But at the exact same time, Namor built a machine that created an entire sun underwater. So their civilization is really fucking advanced, but we don't get to see how advanced. Like, how did the civilization underwater basically track Wakandan agents going to America in a ship that basically has stealth, right? So that's one of those things that it isn't there, but they're there waiting on them. Okoye gets beat. Shuri says, take me to Namor. They take Shuri, they take Riri. Off the Talokan they go. And there's such a great moment that was kind of ruined by the fact that like my theater was like 90% brightness setting down. But we see them go through to Talokan, where they use these it's like a ring, and you place your hand in the ring and it creates a water current underground, but then the water current is like a passageway that basically takes you to the entire city. And the underwater city is fantastic. There are markets, there are kids. It's, for me it was dark, but I'm assuming it's bright, it's lively, and I like the fact that they have their own I think so the Wakandan one is this and the Talokan one is this, but it's this, but Namor does too. So Namor's is basically this, which is a greeting, and then he has another one which is this, when he's basically coming down as like their leader king to bring about command and respect for them to know who exactly he is. Love that. Like, I love that there's like a whole culture. I love that there was a whole fucking backstory, that we got to see that like their civilization started later than Wakanda. Their civilization, I think, was like the 1500s, and it was like the Spaniards had brought smallpox to them, and their people were dying, and their shaman had a vision the same way Bast gave a vision to the first Black Panther, Bashenga, which that's a fucking name drop I wasn't expecting to hear in this movie. And we see the shaman dive into the water, and we see him find an underwater heart-shaped herb, which looks both similar, and I like the fact that it looks different to the original heart-shaped herb. But then we see that the shaman takes the heart-shaped herb and crushes it, and I feel as though this is what sets Talokan apart from Wakanda, where for Bashenga, when he found the heart-shaped herb and he crushed it, he took it for himself. He became the first Black Panther. Whereas the people of Talokan, when they found the heart-shaped herb, they crushed it and they gave it to the entire village. Everyone in the village partook in the power, and the power changed them, which required them to basically be underwater. And because Namor's mother was pregnant with him at the time, he got a double dose, which is basically, I want to say he had a mutation already, and he was already a mutant, and then the addition of the heart-shaped herb into his system also gave him the powers and abilities of his people, of basically being underwater. I want to say his mutation might have been the wings on his feet, which would have allowed him to fly with like the extra durability, but then he also possessed the extra strength of his people as well. And they ended up moving to the ocean and building a civilization underground. But then we also get the reason why he doesn't fuck with the surface world, which is great, because it's great how they used the history of the location to basically shape the history of the comic book character, for him going back to his mother's village, and instead of finding a village, finding a plantation. And he finds a plantation, and he sees the descendants of his people in the area working the plantation as slaves, being beaten, and how, you know, they instantly turn and see these people and they call them sea devils, and they attempt to kill him. And he takes his name Namor from the Spanish priest who's dying, who calls him something Namora. And he was like, oh, if I'm gonna be the devil, then that's gonna be my name. So he takes that name for himself, while also having the name that basically his people call him, which is like Talokan, which is Feather Serpent God, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, which is dope as fuck. Like, I absolutely love that. I also love the fact that when you go to that area, the people in that area have seen him and they revere him as an actual god. Not the people underwater, but the people who are a part of the culture who live on the land, where they say sometimes if they stand by the ocean, they see him just floating there above the waves, and they know that it's their god. I'm like, yo, that's dope as shit. Completely wild for those people to see that man just rise out of the water and like fly into the sky. But like, that's crazy. The man is worshipped underwater, and he's worshipped above ground in the area by the locals. But that's great. That is what we need with complex villains, which Namor is a complex villain. He's a complex villain built around soul rage and his hatred of the surface world. But he's a complex villain nonetheless. Now, in regards to like his two lieutenants, which is Namora and what's my other man name? His name is I'm not remembering off the top of my head. I'm actually gonna have to look for him because I don't remember what his name is, but he's the blue shark skin dude. And yeah, you're absolutely correct. I am not familiar with Atuma. There we go. That took forever. They don't really have a lot to do in this because it really is Namor's show. They're basically just the muscle. So their character development kind of falls to the wayside. I guess you could say Namor kind of gets a little bit of a boost of character development towards the end, but that's okay. Like, we all showed up for Namor anyway, and we got the Namor that I feel as though we really wanted. Now, when the war kicks off, the war fucking kicks off, which is Namor does not send a forward message like, hey, this is the official declaration of war from Talokan. No, he just swims straight to Wakanda and just starts blowing it to shit, which I like the water grenades that they have that do just crazy amounts of damage. The initial battle where I fucking love M'Baku. He's like, he saves the guy from the water and puts him in the boat, and the guy's behind him in the boat, and he's rowing to the shore, and he looks over to his left, and he sees Namor on the beach, and he's like, "Cuckoo God," and he turns and starts rowing towards him. He jumps off the boat and tries to hit Namor with his spear. Love that scene, because Namor just puts up a hand, completely, the spear disintegrates the second it hits him. And M'Baku looks up like, wait, what? And he just decks him. Like, he punches him in the chest. And M'Baku wears complete vibranium. Everything everyone wears in Wakanda is vibranium. The vibranium is sewn into the linen. The vibranium is placed inside the armor. And he hits him in the chest, and we see the vibranium crumple. And he goes flying across the river and crashes into the river shop, and we see the gigantic dent on his chest. That is a marker for just how ridiculously fucking powerful Namor is. The ships come in, they start blasting. The Talokans jump back into the water, they start swimming away. Namor's just standing on the beach. He's getting shot, he doesn't care. Takes out the spear, flips it, jumps into the air, slice one, slice two, slams his spear into the thing, breaks the console. Child's play. He goes up to where Ramonda is. She's behind the glass. I really thought that Ryan Coogler was about to impale Angela Bassett with that motherfucking spear. I was like, there's no way Namor is just going to take that spear and just yeet it through the glass, through Ramonda, and then that's going to be her end. No way you signing off Angela Bassett like this. Doesn't happen. Slams the spear into the glass. The glass is made out of vibranium, so it eats the shot. He gets pissed off. He gets like a gajillion bombs, blows up like the entire side of the building, floods the entire thing. And there's a great scene, and I feel like I'm gonna have to make another video about this, just about the women of this movie in general, where she's swimming to the surface, and as she's swimming to the surface, she turns around and she looks down, and she sees Riri basically falling deeper and deeper. And she has a moment where she could absolutely save herself. And it's defining of Ramonda's character that she swam back down, got Riri, swam back up, and it's that decision to basically save someone else before saving herself that leads to her death. And that was another emotional death. Like, I was already dealing with the fact that they did that amazing tribute for T'Challa at the beginning, and I was not expecting the tribute for Ramonda as well. That caught me off guard. That damn near fucking broke me. Like, both those deaths really broke. That affected me. This was an emotional journey, like I said, through grief, and I like the conversation that happens right after it, which is a conversation between Shuri and M'Baku. And M'Baku, which Winston Duke deserves a whole lot of fucking praise for how dynamic his character of M'Baku has become. Is he loud? Is he boisterous? Absolutely. But at the exact same time, when he speaks, you sit and you listen. Because usually what he's saying, it's important. It has something going on. It's going to tell you the truth that you yourself don't want to hear. And that's basically what happens. He sits down with, well, not even sit down, they're standing in the forest. And he basically said, Shuri, I promised your brother that I would give you wise counsel and I would stand by your side when he was gone. And that is what I'm attempting to do. Whatever the decisions that you make, know that I'm behind you. But at the exact same time, you have to remember what your mother lived for. You have to remember what your mother died for, which is your mother died saving other people. And Shuri ain't want to hear none of that shit because she is in full rage mode. She's been suppressing her emotions for a year in regards to T'Challa's death. And in that moment of her mother also dying, that rage hits 100%. It's at its peak. And she is trying to hold it all together. And she says that I have just buried the last of the people who knew anything about me. And my heart was buried with her, which is, she's speaking about her mother. And they go back to the lab and they get to work. And Riri's off building the Ironheart suit. Or should I say, Riri's off building version 1 of the Ironheart suit. Because of course we know at the end of the movie, she doesn't get to keep that shit. And Shuri goes off and she's researching the heart-shaped herb because Namor gave her a bracelet, and the bracelet had fibers from the original heart-shaped herb that the water shaman had basically found. And she's able to create a 100%, well, not 100%, I think it was like 98.7% or something along those lines, replica of the original heart-shaped herb. And she takes it and she goes on a spirit journey. And here, oh my God, seeing Michael B. Jordan again was dope as shit. Because I like the fact that he's sitting in a destroyed throne room. Yes, it's completely flooded because it's the mind construct of Shuri. But then when you look outside, Wakanda's just on fire. Like the fire starts in the throne room, then it goes outside, and then everything is just blazing out there. And it's such a beautiful shot because they have a conversation that's going to need like its own video to go over, where he's like, yo, you could have summoned anybody. You could have summoned your pops. You could have summoned your moms. You could have summoned T'Challa. You could have summoned any of the other Black Panthers, but you didn't summon any of the Black Panthers. You summoned me because what you're feeling right now is how I felt. And you needed somebody to give you the justification to go out and do what it is that you want to do, which is kill Namor's ass. And it's so great that is the direction that they chose to go in, because it's a perfect use of the ancestral plane, where you basically you know what's funny? In my mind, I thought about how it's basically like in Avatar, when Aang went into the Avatar state and he spoke to Roku, like he'd be like, yo, how do you think, I should handle this? And he's like, all right, so maybe like I'm talking to Roku, but I should go back and I should talk to one of my more previous avatars. And like he'd go back and talk to like Kyoshi, and Kyoshi would just be like, oh, you need to run his shit. And I'd be like, wait, what? But I'm an air nomad. She'd be like, I don't care. Like, air nomad, Shmer nomad. You need to run his shit. Kill his ass. Like, why are we even talking about this? You summoned me because you know that I'm the avatar I was the avatar who got shit done. Run his ass. And in that moment, that's what I thought when we saw Killmonger. When Killmonger showed up and he was sitting on the throne, I was like, she summoned the one person from her avatar spirit that would be like, you know what time it was when you summoned me. Like, run his ass. Like, there ain't no dip. So T'Challa would probably tell you to forgive him. Your moms will tell you to forgive him. I ain't neither of them. Kill his ass. Run his shit. So that whole scene is fantastic. I fucking love it. It's great. And we get when she wakes up, she's pissed off. And usually when the previous Black Panthers, like when T'Challa came out of the soil, his was more tame because he had taken a heart-shaped herb and had it removed from his system, then put back again. And when Killmonger did it, he came out of the soil, he was ready to fight. He was looking around. He was ready to throw hands. When Shuri comes out, she's in like a really hyper state, and everyone thinks that it doesn't work until she loses her control and she punches the mannequin with the armor on it, and it goes flying across the room and indents itself in the wall. That is a great way to show just how powerful Shuri is, and just how powerful T'Challa was, and how much he was holding back. Because I was like, yo, like, that ain't no new strength. Like, that's a typical Black Panther strength right there. Like, that informs just how much T'Challa was holding back in his own movie so that he didn't kill anybody, which makes sense because he was fighting other Wakandans. Now, the war starts, and I thought the war was a bad idea from the beginning, because like they have like this giant ship, but I'm like, yeah, but Namor's people that's what they do. They fight in water. You can't beat somebody in water when water is what they've been fighting in their entire lives. And they go off, and the ship gets absolutely fucked up. They put up like a really, really valiant fight. We got to see the Night Sisters in like their armor. That was super dope. But they lost. And they lost badly. It went from like 500 Wakandan warriors to like 20 warriors just in a corner with like their spears, like you know, hey, if we finna die, we finna die. But while that's going on, the way more interesting fight is happening like off in the distance, because Shuri and Namor are scrapping. Now, I want to make this clear. 10 times out of 10, Namor wins that fight. Fresh, like, fresh out of the water, none of that extra bullshit going on, Namor wins that fight. Across the board, 100%. Why? Because of his physiology. Because he's immune. Because he has both the enhanced traits of somebody from Talokan, and he's also like one of the very first mutants who was born years ago. He dominates Shuri 10 times out of 10. Because we even see in his weakened state, he's able to impale her and damn near almost kill her and leave her on the wall. And if it wasn't for the fact that he was like, I need to get back to the water to like heal and like not be dry and crusty, I'm gonna fucking die here. If he hadn't turned his back, if he had just focused on killing her when he had her impaled, he would have won. But it's his need to get back to the water because he felt himself being weakened. That's what ended up making him lose that fight, because Shuri used her wits. She traps him inside that microwave that was drying him out. He destroys the ship. Then she activates the ship again, and the ship blows up and it sets him on fire. And like those burns will make him succumb. And now that he's weak, she holds the spear over him with the intention of killing him. But then she connects to the ancestral plane again and sees her mother. And her mother was like, you know, show him who we are. And like I said before, Ramonda showed the world who she was, or the type of person that she was when we were watching. Not the MCU, but I'm talking about us, the character themselves. When, as she's swimming up, she looked out and she saw Riri, and she chose to go back and save Riri. And her decision to go back and save Riri and put Riri's well-being before her own defines Ramonda's character. And Shuri seeing Ramonda tell her to basically show him the type of person that you are, finally allowed her to let go of her rage and not kill Namor. Because now she's hearing the wise counsel of basically M'Baku from earlier, where he says that they don't call this guy king or general. They call him Kukulkan, the feather serpent god. If we kill their god, it's going to be never-ending war with these people. We are going to destroy each other for generations. And he's absolutely right. So she finds the peaceful, diplomatic approach to the situation. She gets Namor to yield. He yields. They get on top of another Quinjet. They fly back to the ship, and they call a truce between both their people. Good. That was the only way that you would actually... It's the only way Wakanda survives. Because right now, Wakanda's people moved all the way up into the mountains, away from their original capital city. Which I have to appreciate how efficient Wakanda's ability to basically uproot their entire civilization and move it somewhere else is. Because I never realized just how modular their homes and buildings are. Because they were picking up whole buildings and flying those buildings up into the mountains to like an open area. And I was like, yo, never thought about that before. That's dope as hell. But we see Shuri basically fall into a leadership role where she's now just the Black Panther. while M'Baku is the one who's going to be the leader of the nations. That is a beautiful decision, because M'Baku has always put Wakanda first, but he's never put Wakanda first in a way that basically puts the... No, I can't say that, because in the first Black Panther movie, he was very conservative with his approach, or I should say he was very isolationist with his approach to Wakanda, where he felt as though Wakanda should be hidden from the rest of the world. But his time around T'Challa and the rest of the royal family has basically made him see that Wakanda is better for being a little bit more open than it is for being like a closed off and isolated nation, which is great. I absolutely fucking love that. Shuri's off being Black Panther. Riri Williams heads back to MIT, I believe, is where she was at. And while that's going on, Shuri goes on a trip to Haiti to basically complete the funeral garb ceremony, where she lets go of the people that she's lost. As it's burning, she sees her mother, she sees her brother, and she's finally able to grieve, which is something that she wasn't able to do before because she was always just so angry. And then we get the reveal that T'Challa and Nakia had a son. And I was really hoping that his name would be something unique, that maybe he would name him after his uncle, Njobu. No, what was his name? No. So the uncle was Njobu and Killmonger was Njidaka. I was really hoping that he would name the kid after one of them, but the kid's name is just T'Challa, which that's fine. Like, I'm not a fan of like so-and-so the second. I always feel as though that's like super generic. But then again, naming him after one of them would technically make him the second, so I guess that's also fucking generic. But I was really hoping that he would name him after one of those two to basically honor his uncle or his cousin that he never realized he ever had. But the kid's name is T'Challa. That's 100% fine. Here's the thing, and here's the true question. Is that kid a mutant? I say yes. Because depending on when this child was born, so we know that he lived throughout the entire blip, which is the 5 years. So it seems as though he was born somewhere after the end of Black Panther. Because I think he's like 7 or 8. He's up there in age. So he's been around for a while. It'll be interesting to see exactly if he has powers like one of T'Challa's other kids, the one I think he has with Storm. One of his children, I don't remember which one it is, but his powers are basically that he has vibranium enhanced skin, so nothing can get through his skin, but then he also has the ability to like project kinetic energy back at people who attack him, and he has tattoos that glow. We'll see. Like, that's dope as hell. We'll see. Of course, it wasn't a post-credit scene. We'll have a video about that after this video drops, but yeah, I fucking love this movie. So, you know, you already know me. Comment down below, let me know what you think. Favorite parts of the movie, and I'm gonna be in that comment section, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.